how do we encourage our primary writers to read well, write well, and think well? So the movable alphabet is a wonderful tool. It's a Montessori tool. And this is included in our kindergarten and our first grade level collection. It can be purchased a la carte also on our website. The movable alphabet is the bridge to the pencil. So children who are, still just trying to master that fine motor skill are much more able to utilize the movable alphabet. It does not require as much dexterity as utilizing the pencil, but they will be using a pencil at this level too. The other thing that the movable alphabet does, you can see that all of the vowels are blue and the consonants are red. So as the children are encoding words, they will see what's happening with the vowels. They will see that these vowels do special things. This work is slow work. It builds discipline, it builds focus. So a student will have maybe a little object laid out and they will have to spell it. The object might be a cat, or it might be a little miniature bottle of milk. And so they are going to choose the sounds that they think represent that item. And this work is independent. So they see this little miniature cat, they're going to recognize that the first sound they hear is the k sound, they'll choose the C. Then the middle sound they hear is A, they'll choose the A. And the end sound they hear is a T, they'll choose the T. And then with our program, we have self-correcting cards that they can then turn over. Oh, I spelled it correctly. But then part of the work is also putting those letters neatly back into the movable alphabet. So there are all these soft skills that are built and cultivated using the movable alphabet. I wanted to mention here that online we have a wonderful free spelling program. You can access it from the orange bar at the top of the homepage. And this free spelling program uses the movable alphabet. It's a constructive approach to spelling. And what we do is we provide a big word like California. And then we go through all the 3-letter words, the 4-letter words, the 5-letter words that can be made from the word California. Using the movable alphabet, what they will see is they will see all of these amazing patterns. They'll see all 44 phonograms in action. Everything that we say, all of the words we write, they utilize 44 sounds. Those are all of the sounds in the English language. And to me, that's quite marvelous. So the free spelling is a really good resource for primary writers, and sometimes even for writers in early elementary, 4th grade, sometimes even 5th grade, to kind of remediate some of those spelling issues. So the movable alphabet is a great tool. But the pencil is the best technology. It is, there's so much research. My undergraduate degree is in neuroscience, and I'm so interested in the brain. And when it comes to literacy and language, holding that pencil and doing your encoding, taking your ideas from your mind through the pencil and through this activity is a much stronger learning tool. It's a much more active learning tool than typing. Typing is a much more passive activity. With the pencil, you're actually shaping and forming letters, which reinforces memory. So the pencil is the best technology. Let's talk primary writing. So the primary grades are typically considered kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. There is so much learning happening at these levels. With Blackbird and Company, we introduce all of phonics in kindergarten and first grade. So we're going to clip through all 44 sounds. We're going to introduce and isolate each one of those sounds for reading and for writing. Does that mean that children will have mastered all of those sounds? No. What you're going to do is you're going to continue to review this. How do children review this? The best way to really master phonics is writing. It is by actually using the phonics on the page. So in the second grade, our curriculum, our grade level collection really focuses on writing. There's lots of writing practice. And reading, it's expected that children will have like a wonderful basket of readers that are leveled according to their ability, that they'll just be creating this kind of tradition or habit of reading. But in the second grade, we're going to give lots of opportunities for writing. So that is the forefront goal there. Okay, so what does kindergarten writing look like? So in kindergarten, we introduce students to all of the consonant sounds, all of the short vowel sounds. We introduce them to the consonant blends. So these are the two consonants together where you can hear both sounds. B-L, bull, right? C-L, cool. You still hear the C and the L. You still hear the B and the L. We also introduce them to the digraphs. Digraphs are letters that they're two consonants together that make a completely different sound. TH, SH, sh. Okay, so they will be introduced to all of this part of phonics, and then they'll be making words like chimp, like shrimp. Okay, so they're going to be at the end of kindergarten be able to confidently spell using all of that part of phonics. So when they're journaling, during the journal activity every week, they will be writing. At first, when they're just being introduced to the consonant sounds and the short vowel sounds, they might draw a picture of people, and they're going to, underneath their journal, just put 3 letters, PPL, because those are the letters and the sounds that they have mastered, and those are the sounds they hear in people. They might put the E in there, P-E-P-L, because E is the name of a letter that they know. So they're going to use what we call inventive spelling, utilizing mastered phonics and some of the early sight words that they're learning. So right away in kindergarten, we're teaching them sight words for reading and sight words for writing. So what you want to do is you want to watch in this journal. You don't want to use this as a heavy-handed editing opportunity. What you want to do is you want to watch the journal, see what the child's ideas are, and just marvel at the fact that these little children are able to encode even these little inventive words. Over time, editing in its proper place will really motivate students that their ideas, the work of putting their ideas on paper, is worth it. So during the middle to the end of the kindergarten year, children will be using simple phrases, even little sentences. The cat sat. Do you see? This is one sight word and 2 words with consonants and short vowels. They will have been using their movable alphabet to make words like this. They will have been making words like this in their journals. They might write, I ran. They might even start using little phrases with adjectives. The fat cat. The fat cat sat. So, so this is what we're going to see by the end of kindergarten. And this is a little page that shows one of the really super important parts of hatchling. So every week, the student will be introduced to 4 or 5 sounds, okay? And each of those sounds, they're called phonemes. And so they were isolating the phonics so they can see what letter or what combination of letters make that sound or phoneme. So here you see the other skill we're engaging is cutting. Cutting is a super important skill for fine motor. It helps to develop this, this really important fine motor, and it's going to make pencil work easier. I've encountered children in the 5th grade who've never really used scissors, and consequently, writing is really hard for them. So every week, students will be cutting and pasting to kind of reinforce the introduction of that phoneme. The 1st grade, we get to the 1st grade, and the 1st grade is the construction zone, we call it. So in the 1st grade, students will be introduced to the second half of phonics, the more complex phonics, the patterns that make the long vowel sounds, the vowel combinations that make those odd sounds like ow, ouch, right? So all of these interesting, more complex phonetic sounds. But also in the 1st grade, we're going to introduce students to all 4 types of sentences. And the way that we do this is we will give a sentence, like a model sentence. Once I jumped over a blank. The goal is for the student to choose one of the objects they've been using that week. So the object has a self-correcting card for spelling. And they make a silly sentence. Once I jumped over a cup. Once I jumped over a cow, right? And then what they're going to do is they're going to learn, is this sentence a statement, a command, a question, or an exclamation? They're going to circle what type of question it is. A different sentence for each day. So every week they will be crafting 5 sentences. 1st grade, the goal is to move towards 2nd grade readiness. And in 2nd grade, we want all of these tools intact. We want all of phonics to have been introduced. All of the phonetic objects and the 2 decks of cards can be used in the 2nd grade for review. So, laying out some of those cards and some of those objects every week for the child on the movable alphabet, on the lid to the movable alphabet for independent practice is a great idea. So they will have mastered especially kindergarten phonics. Their sight word lexicon is increased. They're getting this large selection of sight words that is usable. They will be able to use their name in the context of an idea. Mrs. B jumps over the moon, etc. They will use words like can, what, people, and so on. And this will enable them to write simple ideas. So by the end of the year, students are composing many, many simple, silly sentences. And I didn't put any exclamations or question marks on my PowerPoint. I wish I did. Did the cat sit on the frog? Question mark. So be sure to always encourage students to use all 4 types of sentences. Okay, so this is a 1st grade sample at the end of the 1st grade. I love this little drawing with the mama cat and the 3 little tiny cats. The kittens and the mom are walking. You see there's a capital, there's an end mark. Now kittens, do you see that there's a capital K there? I probably would not go in and correct that in this setting. I want to look at this and understand what the child has mastered. Look at the ending. Walking is a very interesting word. And this LK would have been introduced in kindergarten. And the ending, the ing ending, would have been introduced in Hatchling Volume 2. So we're seeing kind of the culmination of these 2 years of phonics introduction. In the second grade, phonics has been introduced. There's a large body of sight words that have been that children can read and write. But in second grade, we want to increase this lexicon, this ability to describe the world at large. And this is all about words. So in the second grade, we will begin Operation Lexicon, the goal is to get children just excited about words. And I love this illustration by Leo Leone here. I always imagine these frogs, you know, they're chasing insects, but I always imagine that they're chasing words, because words are wonderful. So at this level in Early Bird, each week they're going to describe characters with these wonderful descriptors. And I love these 3 words that this little person used here: quarrelsome, greedy, and shellfish. Those are really interesting words. Frogs are not really shellfish, but I still liked the descriptor. Greedy is not spelled correctly. Shellfish is not spelled correctly. I'm not going to go in and edit and tackle this. The goal is that this child is trying to reach into the wide world of words, and the spelling will get there, and we will. You'll see if you're going to follow us on the 3 sessions today, you'll see kind of the progression and how we dive into editing children's writing. So in the second grade, students are really, you know, able to construct sentences. They're very confident with the sentence. They can craft questions, statements, commands, and exclamations. They are also able, they're starting to be able to write little multi-sentence stories using all of these tools that have been introduced in Hatchling Volume 1 and Hatchling Volume 2. And so you'll see here that this student drew a picture and wrote a little story to go with it that has 3 sentences. In the summertime, my brother and I spend a lot of time at the lake. One time, rain clouds forced us out of the water, making me sad. So it's a super simple story, but that little activity right there is the work of reinforcing. That's the practice that needs to happen so that in, you know, middle school, children will be able to write an essay. They need to be using this pencil early on and play with story making. Story making is going to enable children to really move into writing their ideas. And that's what we here at Blackbird and Company believe is most important about writing. We believe that form follows function always, and form is, am I writing a sentence? What kind of sentence am I writing? What kind of grammar am I using? What kind of words am I using? When somebody says to you, I'd like you to write, and I would like you to write 1 sentence about the clouds, look up into the sky, write 1 sentence about the clouds. You are not going to say to yourself, how many prepositional phrases can you squeeze into 1 sentence? And, you know, should I use 3 verbs or 2 verbs? And what kind of sentence should I use? No, you look up into the sky, you think to yourself, that is a dreamy sight that I'm looking at, and you start to compose a sentence. Afterwards, you look at what you wrote, and then you dive into form. So Form follows function. The function of everything that lands on a piece of paper, that is the idea. The idea is what matters. Okay, so that's just a really quick share about the primary years. And so I'm going to pass the baton to my wonderful team mate, Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire. And I just wanted to add a little bit like on to what Kim said, just reminding if you've taken some of our other professional development classes, you'll probably have noted that I'm always going back to our guides. And most of our guides are built into, or the teacher helps are built into the guide. In Hatchling, we give you a separate teacher helps. But if you can notice, it's thin, it's readable, it's understandable, it gives really good suggestions. So just use this as your reference in your guide, and it gives you things that Kim was talking about when we're first talking about just learning patterns, when they're first starting to build with that movable alphabet. And she pointed out that the vowels are different colors than the consonants. And we point out when they're writing that they can use a colored pencil to like mark that pattern in their writing so that they can see it as well, right? So they're playing with these great words. They're learning the sounds. They're learning how to build. If you go through our book, we will give you suggestions on how to practice and review each week with the words that they're learning, how to practice and review sight words, how to keep building on that. We talk about the importance of handwriting and the line work and the cutting, so our work is slow, and it's the tortoise, it's not the hare. It's doing it finely, neatly, top to bottom, following lines. And then when you get into the writing, now by first grade, we've introduced that sentence of the day. And I love that, the statement, the question, the exclamation, the command, and you're reviewing and playing with those words and objects, right? And you're making it fun. And some of those sentences can be silly. And you can use it I loved Kim's voice when she put in, I wished one of them was a question, because when we read that way, they can hear it as well. When you read the question, when you read the exclamation with excitement, oh, wow, the tortoise, hid from the angry tiger, so it gives that, it shows them, it's modeling what that mark is saying in writing, right? And now when you look at the picture books, we've talked about this in other professional development as well, and it starts super young when we talk about seeing is reading and being able to use the book as your mentor. So you're using these picture books right away. We give you a picture book to read every week, right? And they're doing their own little journaling. So when you read these books out loud, it talks about having fun. It talks about being expressive, talking about characters, letting them look at the pictures and read. They're picking up so much. They're looking, they're reading from left to right, right? They're being able to read from looking at pictures at first. And then as slowly maybe recognizing words as you're reading and incorporating these kind of things, but being able to discuss, because as we keep building, we're going to get into characters and descriptions and vocabulary and story prompts and all of that. But when you talk about, questions as you're going, what's going to happen next? Leave time for that discussion, discuss the story, to share their ideas, because from that reading, it leads to writing. If you can read, you can write. And that's what these books are mentoring us with, these beautiful picture books. Discussing the stories, taking that slow. Kim mentioned the basket, you know what I mean, of books. And then we talk about painless journaling in here. And we give you a way to do it, because Kim was talking about not pulling out the red pen at this stage, right? But being able to, have some dialogue, and so this painless journaling, we talk about writing back and forth, so it gives you examples in here, and, they might write something phonetically, and Kim showed some examples of that. And she gives an example in the guide, the way they might write something, phonetically. And you could write back and model, so you can discuss, oh, what is this, and you see this picture, and let them add details, because the details lead to the story, right? So you look at the picture and you say, oh, what is this? And maybe you even take a guess. yes, is it this? And they say, no. And they say, oh, and when you hear them say, no, the cloud is actually sleepy. And they wrote that connect, you could write that on the bottom. Oh, the cloud is sleepy. And they see you modeling how to write that, the capital, right? The correct spelling, the punctuation, which might have the exclamation mark with there, So letting them see, it talks about in kindergarten being able to ask yes and no questions, so and letting them be able to say yes or no. They could write yes or no. You could have little cards that say yes, no, maybe, and they point to what they wanted to say, and she gives a very clear example. Is that a rain cloud you drew? The child writes no, or maybe they point to no. And the child says, this is a happy marshmallow cloud. Well, then you can write that for them. Oh, this is a happy, marshmallow cloud. So it's watching, it's a lot of example. It's example, asking questions, discussing, having them see, how it's corrected. So that's really important. I think that's what I wanted to point out in the hatchling. As you go to the early bird, excuse my voice, and that's you're getting into the story that you're doing once a week. So you can see how you're expanding in these picture books and doing this little drawing. Now you're taking a picture book and you're doing one a week, and you're taking that picture book and now getting into character descriptions. You're pulling vocabulary and learning how to, use that vocabulary in sentences. And we give you tips on how to do that. And let them make mistakes. Let them choose the wrong word and hear how it sounds. And then you can correct that and say, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. Let's try the next one, and putting that in. But you can see the steps and how they're working up from just the 4 basic sentence types to doing this kind of journaling that's painless and talking and maybe doing some dictating, right? To now you're going through a story and you're getting into characters, you're getting into vocabulary, how to use that in sentences, you're getting into Kim showed the frogs and the detailed words, and you can use a whiteboard and give them, when they say a word, say that's a great word. I can think of a word that means that too, and you can give one of your own. In the last session, we used one that was kind. I use kind a lot because kids always are saying kind, nice, right? So to think of how to expand that, one that we had thought of in a previous class was warm-hearted. So how you can keep expanding on vocabulary for these same words that they use often. So kind of, getting into that and then exploring again, when you get to their picture, their draft at the end, they'll always write a story of their own, and we'll give them a little personal prompt to encourage the details, the drawing, the creativity, we give the tip of writing at least 3 things, at least 3 details, and you can talk that out first. They can write those things. You could write one, they could write one, you could dictate. So my turn, your turn. You can see how you can scaffold as you're building up this skill of writing more, right? But you've always had this in place that you're discussing the stories, which lead to this beautiful writing, right? The last things I wanted to say, was there's 2 tools I just wanted to point out. We give you so many tools to write your own idea. So this one, again, for primary, it would go for kindergarten, first, second. We give you the calendar of days. Okay, beautiful tool where they're learning days and months and seasons and weather and their number, place value at the top for days they've been in school. It's a beautiful journal. But at the end, what do we do? I'm always putting my thumbs up. Sorry. I use my hands a lot when I'm talking. But we give you a journal prompt. Again, what was your favorite day? And you end the week every day with this, with a picture and something to write. So we give lots of opportunities to be creative, to write something that means something to them. And it's a beautiful tracking tool too, to see your child's growth in writing, and also have like a really great memento at the end of the year of a journal of all your students' favorite days, which is really kind of fun. But we're giving them tools, right, to write, have their creative idea. The other thing that we put in second grade that you probably saw in one of Kim's pictures was Storymaker. And that comes with really neat puppets, and it comes with cards. And that's coming up with this very first creative sentence, this creative hook sentence to start a creative paper, right? So how do you even get started? Kids get really baffled with this, and we'll give tips, as we're going, how do you even get started writing something, right? So we give you the puppets, we give you the deck of cards, and the deck of cards will go over characters and situations and setting. And then inside the guide, we give you a list of hooks for the first phrase. Okay. So really in the first part, they're copying. It's copying work. They're picking a hook and they're copying it. They're picking a character and a situation, copying, setting. But then at the end, they have this full descriptive sentence because you're trying to move them from he ran fast, right, to all this beautiful detail that you can put into a story. And how do you start this creative story? And at the bottom, it will ask you all the W's, the who, when, why, what did you cover in that? They can mark that off to see how they filled this sentence. You know what I mean? Answering all of these questions, right? And then they're copying that sentence to start their creative story. And that's how they get their ideas going, right? And those puppets can add to like what happens next, So these tools, use them in all of, we're trying to give you all these different ways you can spark ideas. You can get it on paper. You can give them tools to how to start, details to add, all of those things within their writing. So I hope that gives you some tips and some things to look up when you go back to our website. And we're going to have a lot of these as classes. So we don't do necessarily right now, we're doing on Pages Online, we're doing from second grade early bird. Okay. And we'll go through 12th grade with our literature guides. But we add applicational classes. And one of the applicational classes will be Storymaker. And that's with our primary teacher, Miss Julia. And she's wonderful when we talk about being expressive and a storyteller and lots of tips. She's done it for a long time. The kids love her, and she's really neat. She's given me a lot of tips along the way to model when I'm reading and I'm interacting with young children. So I hope you can use that as a resource. Kim, do you want me to wrap up how to find us, or do you want to end with?
Sure. I just have a couple things to say. I love how I love that that you, Claire, that you captured the phrase, if you can read, you can write. And this kind of encapsulates what we believe at Blackbird and Company, that reading and writing are integrated skills. And so literacy won't ever really thrive unless you kind of tie those two things together. The second thing I really loved that you said is write something meaningful. When children are allowed to write something meaningful, this will completely lead to motivated writers. And then the last thing, Claire, that you touched on is the idea of constructive writing. So when children start with Storymaker here in the second grade, we're teaching them this concept of constructing language as opposed to deconstructing language. And actually we way back in the first grade, when they're constructing sentences each week, we're using this method. But staring at the blank page can be really daunting. And we as adults who can hit that page running, we need to remember that these little ones, they're just being filled with tools. And so we need to give them the training wheels that they need. So I love those 3 points that you brought up, Claire. So why don't you send us packing, and we'll hopefully see some of you at the next session at 10:15, right, Claire?
Yes, at 10:15. Yes, okay. So what I wanted to end with saying was that you can find all of this information from the materials to our list of pages classes online. So if you go to our website and on the orange bar, you'll see a tab where you can hit for materials, but you'll also see, and then we'll give them by grade level and grade level collections and a la carte, but you can also see where you can see our classes. And each class will have a description, the day, the time, the teacher that's doing it, so you can understand a little bit more about it. And then if you have any questions, please write into our Take Flight email on the website, or call our 1-800 number. We spend a lot of time with customers. We'll go hold your hand. We will go over things. We will give you lots of details. So please use all of that as a resource on the website. And then We are also recording these professional development classes, and it probably will be about 30 days, but they will be able to be, watched, accessed again, watched. So if you miss something, you want to go back to something, we also have a lot of free resources. Kim mentioned a free spelling program. We give you, we have a list of freebies, which I think are very useful to use for parents. And we're also going to be adding a lot more tips and guides for Hatchling 1 and Hatchling 2, the kinder and first grade tools for parents to keep using besides our guide and the things we already give you. We want to give you more as much as we can. And when we can give it for free, that's what we're trying to do. So please use all of those resources. And we appreciate you. And thank you for taking flight with us today. Maybe we'll see you at 10:15. Thank you.